Everybody, it's Dr. Mark here, and I'm excited to talk to you today about a really important topic that I am so fascinated with, which is our longevity switches. What are those, you're wondering? What are those? Well, I wrote about them in my book, Young Forever, and it's a deep dive into understanding the biology of aging, how our health span equal our lifespan, how to put more life into our years and years into our life, and what is the science telling us about the biology of aging and what we can do about it. And I'm going to invite someone on to talk about this with me who is really quite a smart dude from a company called Wonderfeel, which is a company that makes something called NMN. We're going to get deep into the science of what that is, what we know about it. You might have heard about David Sinclair, you might have heard about his research on longevity, and we're going to get, oh, there you are, it says you joined. Says you joined. Okay, go live with get. Oh my God, we actually worked. Holy cow. Fantastic. This is such good news. So sorry everybody for all the tech problems, but we figured it out. And I'm really excited to have you. How you doing?
Great, Mark. So much anticipation. I'm so glad to be here finally.
So I want to get right into it because I think people really want to understand about what the latest science is around how we understand the biology of aging and what we can do about it. And, as I've gotten older, obviously I've gotten way more interested in the science of longevity and aging from a self-interested perspective, obviously. And, I did my biological age a couple years ago, and I was 43 when I was 62. So I'm really happy about that, but I want to keep that going. And what I've really learned about in my book research was the amazing amount of science around a particular compound that interacts with what I call the longevity switches. There's four of them: mTOR, insulin signaling, sirtuins, and something called AMPK, which is related to a drug called metformin and regulates blood sugar. But sirtuins was sort of the original discovery by Lenny Guarte from MIT and David Sinclair, where they were able to extend life by a third. But more importantly, they were able to extend the health and the functionality and the vibrancy and life in these little animals. Now, they've done human studies on this. There's more trials going on all the time. There's tons of papers being published on it. And you've actually, done a lot of work in understanding this, and you've been working with a lot of amazing scientists from top universities around the world, and basically are helping people get access to using this compound. And it's something I personally take, and I don't endorse a lot of companies, but I really think that we need to call out companies that are doing good work in this space and actually doing good job. So let's start out with talking about what the heck is NAD, NMN, NR. Why are all the longevity scientists around the world focused on this compound from Harvard, MIT, and why does this matter? Why should we care?
Well, NAD turns out that is so crucial that without NAD, you'll be dead in 10 seconds. It takes place in over 500 enzymatic reactions in the body. So it's crucial, but it becomes even more important with energy production. 70% of NAD is used in mitochondria. So basically NAD powers the cell. It turns into ATP. So think about what it does. It powers all your organs, or you brought the question of aging. So you don't see people in their 20s with Alzheimer's and dementia or serious heart issues. They started manifesting themselves when you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And why is that happening, right? Like, as you mentioned, there are few pathways that we have discovered. So an NAD touches to almost most of them, not all of them. So, but the real discovery is not NAD. NAD has been discovered in 1906. The discovery is that understanding that the NAD levels start declining as you age. So by the time you get to 50, you might be producing only half as much as NAD, which all the organs, all your cells need. But you cannot just take an NAD pill. So the discovery is that the precursors, NMN, Nicotinamide Mononucleotide, or Nicotinamide Riboside, that helps to make NAD in the body. So those two are also something your body produces. Just as NAD, just not as much.
So this is what happens. Basically, we have these biomolecules, these incredible compounds that are made by nature that are designed to regulate our health. And when we age, for various reasons, toxins, stress, poor diet, and various kinds of insults, we end up having a decline in some of these longevity molecules. And one of the most critical is this compound NAD+, which is critical for regulating, like you said, many, many functions. It regulates inflammation. It regulates the production of mitochondria and their activity. It regulates our antioxidant status. It activates our whole DNA repair system. So we have little DNA repair like armies that go out every day. You get, let's say, 100,000 little injuries to your DNA. Well, how do those get fixed? You got to send out the repair crew, and NAD activates the repair crew to go out and clean up and fix your DNA, so you don't get cancer and all other harmful things that caused by DNA mutations. That's one of the things that happens as we age. So we can actually increase this. It also improves our insulin sensitivity and blood sugar regulation, and it's just such a powerful strategy for helping improve health and longevity. So tell me more about the scientific research that you're looking at, the reason you kind of got into this, and what gets you most excited about what really is going on.
Well, when we started, there was actually not that much scientific research. It was very, very promising. And I'm actually speaking on behalf of the amazing scientists we work with, starting with Professor Salzman from Harvard University. He's a Harvard Medical School doctor, and he worked on actually something called the PARP inhibitor that helped fixing the broken DNA, that the BRCA gene that causes ovarian cancer and breast cancer in women. It turns out that the PARP inhibitors use NAD. So he's got in-depth understanding of the cellular function, mitochondrial function, and how NAD plays a role. And what has happened is not just us, the scientific community, the longevity research has come long ways in the last just 5 years. Now we have over 1,500 peer-reviewed papers on NMN, and most of it has come out in the last 2 years. But the more important ones, the human clinical trials, have also been just coming out in the last 1 to 2 years. And so we can look at the specific things you're talking about, like inflammation. It does reduce inflammation. The one thing that was really interesting and surprising is it actually helps with hypertension. It reduces blood pressure. That only was discovered in September of 2023. Yeah. The ones that I'm really excited about, for instance, is what we talked about. It helps with energy production, but we could see in a human clinical trial on amateur runners that it increases the oxygen distribution in tissue where it matters.
Yeah.
What it means is you can just go up the stairs. If you can go up 2 flights of stairs without stopping, now you can probably go 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story that David Sinclair, who's one of the leading researchers in this area, tells about how they have this like a mouse treadmill, which goes about a kilometer, and then it kind of wears out. It's like it's not meant to go because mice can't run that fast or that long. And they gave these old mice NMN, and they actually broke the treadmill. The little mice were able to run 3 kilometers instead of 1 kilometer, and the treadmill broke. and that, I mean, I don't know. I actually was climbing a mountain in Patagonia a couple weeks ago, and I probably needed more of my NMN because it was a lot. I needed an extra help, but I did it. I'm 64. It was 15 miles. And a mile straight up vertically and a mile straight down vertically. Normally it says do it in 2 days, but I did it in 1 day. So maybe I'm like the little mouse. I don't know. It was fun. Yeah, but it's really quite an important compound in the body. And one of the things that people don't realize is that energy, like you said, is the most critical thing that we have. If your mitochondria stop working, you're dead in a second. That's what causes death from cyanide poisoning. It literally poisons your mitochondria. But conversely, optimizing your mitochondria is one of the key aspects of longevity and health, in every area of health. I mean, I've treated mitochondria for decades. In fact, I had real mitochondrial problem myself, and I think it's a really important compound. I've used NAD with patients, for example, with Parkinson's, and seeing their tremors improve. I've seen people with cognitive issues improve. I've seen many use cases, and it's very, very safe to use. And I think we still obviously need more research on this, but there's a lot of clinical trials going on that are around cognition, on sleep, on blood pressure, on long COVID, on improving insulin sensitivity and blood sugar regulation. So I think it's super exciting. So tell us more about how do people start to think about the science of this? Is there more science you want to call out that you're excited about, some of the human trials, some of the things that you kind of learned about recently?
I want to mention something. So there are all these benefits we talk about, but one of our challenges, for instance, as people, as humans, is how do you track these changes? because some of these changes, it takes maybe 6 months, 8 months to manifest, because as the NAD levels take a long time to decline, so is the manifestation of when we bring back the NAD levels. So what I mean by that is actually what we need from the people who use it is the feedback, because their feedback helps us to look into what areas to do research. The spectrum is so wide that you might not even realize that you sleep better. Or somebody who's really healthy like you might not feel the energy boost because you're probably pretty active. You're probably pretty, have good energy levels. And we actually tested it, to be very frank, with a Olympic swimmer. He was the gold medalist in 50-meter freestyle, the fastest guy in the pool. And he couldn't really feel that much of the difference because he's in peak form. But somebody who's 70 years old who's struggling, they feel it. So for clinical research, right, like this hypertension was a really interesting one because people started reporting it, and it helps to look into what next to study. So insulin sensitivity is interesting. There has been some sleep improvement, but skin health, for instance, what we discovered, especially with our specific formulation, people with eczema, their eczema that is almost impossible to treat. They try every new thing, every cream, every new discovery, and they still suffer from it. Yet, like after some daily, like long-term use, it completely eradicates eczema. So that was fascinating. But then there's some other funny stories. People's eyelashes, like women in their 40s, they start losing their eyelashes and their eyebrows. My co-founder discovered, like after COVID, she wasn't putting any makeup on. All of a sudden, she had eyelashes, but nobody's going to study really eyelashes. We have so many more important things.
For sure.
But the feedback is very, very important for us to look into the next areas of studies.
Now, there's a lot of different compounds out there. There's like NAD, which you can get as plus, which you can get as sub-Q injections or IV. You can take NR. There's a lot of products out there on the market that have NR, which is another precursor that goes into NMN. Then there's NMN. There's different versions of that. What is sort of unique about Wonderfeel and that's different that you like that you sort of put together that has a differential effect?
Well, starting with the goal is to increase the NAD levels. Yes, you can take NAD as an IV, but we don't have a lot of science on that one specifically. So the idea of taking this as an oral is to increase it steadily because your NAD production is a daily thing. You're producing billions of it every minute. So instead of spiking it like doing an IV, we're doing constant daily use. So number one, most important thing is daily use. So as far as the question about NMN and NR, they're both precursors. It's a complex way of how it works in the body, but like if I want to really make it simpler, NR, Nicotinamide Riboside, turns into NMN, and then there's a specific receptor on the outside of the cell that grabs the NMN, takes it, flips it inside, and inside NMN turns into NAD. So we feel like it's a shortcut to get into the NAD production, but NR also works. So both NMN and NR work. But what we have done with Professor Salzman is we added a few certain activators, which you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. And they also are very strong antioxidants. So they allow NMN to do what it needs to do inside the cell by activating the sirtuins. And I mentioned some ingredients.
Or we call it sirtuins or sirtuins. It's just a different pronunciation.
Sirtuins.
Sirtuins, yeah.
And then I want to talk about a couple of specific ingredients that we have in there that seems like that makes the difference in some of the outcomes. One of them is prevalent in mushrooms. It's called ergothioneine. I think I mentioned it to you. So we first came across it about 10, 15 years ago. One of our friends' mother had a serious case of Alzheimer's, and they did not want to put her in a caretaker's house. So they looked around, and one of the professors from Penn State recommended her to eat a lot of porcini mushrooms in the morning. And sure enough, she will behave really well that day. So we're like, why is that? What is it? And they pointed to ergothioneine. And when we started looking into it, first of all, it was super expensive, hard to find ingredients when we were looking into it. And we ended up talking to Barry Halliwell, a Oxford University professor who was nominated for a Nobel Prize in 2021 for his work on antioxidants and vitamins. And he was like, I don't know about all the work I've done, but it brought me to ergothioneine. So he explained to us that ergothioneine is prevalent in mother's milk, and babies have receptors for it.
Oh, amazing.
But we don't know why. So a baby who's 1 year old to somebody who's 80 years old with Alzheimer's benefit from it. We have a receptor for it. And moreover, it's adaptive. It collects in the tissue for up to 30 days, whereas there's tissue damage. So it's a phenomenal compound. There's not enough clinical trials out there, but Barry Hallowell was raising money to do an Alzheimer's trial.
Yeah.
So what we have seen, for instance, is
so you think it's like a helper? It's a helper with NMN.
Exactly.
It helps it work better.
Exactly. And what we have seen is, like in the case of eczema, for instance, when the patient stopped taking or compounds, and we introduced just NMN at once, and it helped a little bit, but not fully. Then we removed it, introduced ergothioneine. It helped, but not fully. Finally, at that point, she said, no, I don't want eczema. So she started taking the full formula. So yeah, we need to do more research. We are doing in vitro studies. We are looking at how the damaged cells recover based on the ingredients we use. And the other ingredient we have, for instance, that's very interesting, is a polyphenol from olive oil. And it also comes with a whole bunch of other polyphenols. So hydroxytyrosol is the one we use, and it's the proxy for the other great polyphenols. And think about it. We know that good olive oil is very beneficial, but why? So you cannot consume liters of olive oil. So we have found
Well, I do. I go through about a liter a week. I don't know about you, but I love it. I pour it on my vegetables. It's a great fat. It's been proven to actually reduce heart disease and cancer, and is an anti-inflammatory. Some of the compounds you're talking about are as effective as Advil and so forth for inflammation. So definitely love olive oil, and it's great. So you've got basically these three compounds: NMN, ergothioneine, and hydroxytyrosol, which are all basically from mushrooms, olive oil, and NMN. And we talk about the sort of synergistic effect of all these, which is great. I think we talk about lifespan, health span. I think in animal models there has been some lifespan extension, but the data is sort of still kind of mixed out there. And I think that's really not the goal. So what is the main goal for people with this product, and how do you think, that NMN can play a role in our general health?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to, the first and foremost goal is to slow down aging. So our focus is more on the health span. Can we help you to live past the ceiling of 115 years? Maybe, but if we can get more people to live in a better state into their 80s and 90s, we will be very, very happy.
That's amazing. So the unique kind of sort of aspects of this are really around these sort of combination products, the NMN. And what about the absorbability? How does this get in? Is it do we really kind of see that it gets through the system, the measuring the blood levels? Like, what are the clinical sort of data you have on this?
Oh, great question. So there are some customers out there, they think that liposomal NMN works better. And we have looked hard and we've done all the research. So far, we haven't seen any proof that liposomal or sublingual works any better. There's not a single study out there. So all the research institutions, they use NMN in the regular capsule form. So the bioavailability is there. If the liposomals, we don't know if liposomals are better. We are actually doing some more research on it. Hopefully we'll get an answer, a really clear-cut answer very soon. But for now, just like all the leading institutions, the best way to use it is the oral form of capsules.
And that's really what you provide. And the dose matters, because a lot of the products out there, NR, there's like far fewer studies on NR than NMN. Really at a massive scale. I think it was like 600 versus 1,500 for NMN. But the dose really matters. And I think, we talk about David Sinclair's work, he talks about 1,000 milligrams as the dose. But that's kind of expensive when you look at the typical preparations, but usually you're like $250 a pill for NR or other ones. So what dose do you think we should be taking, and what is the dose in the NMN product that you have, the Wonderfeel?
Yeah, we have 900 milligrams of NMN in the Wonderfeel younger formula. And plus with the sorting activation, it's a pretty powerful pill. But what we have seen when the clinical studies is the lower doses are really not that effective. So, and I don't want to, even like calling them lower or higher is probably tricky. let's call it the optimal dose, let's call it the right dose. And
Yeah.
a clinical trial showed in September again is people start taking much more, actually 2,000 milligrams per day.
Oh, really?
And there hasn't been any red flags. Some of our customers take more than our recommended dose, and they report great results. I think one of the indications for side effects, we can look at the IV treatments because they're flooding the blood with NAD.
Yeah, I've
So
had
that's
it.
you had it, right? It's a very, very different
Yeah.
level. Where ours is, we think that, in order to get some benefits, you need to give the optimal dose. And a few clinical trials, they all show the range being between like 800 and 1200. Maybe in the future we're going to show that 2000 is better, but right now let's be safe and stick to 900. That's what we feel.
That's great. And what I, again, I mentioned that again, I don't really endorse or support many products, but I do take this, and I think it's a very, critical molecule in my regimen for my health and longevity. And just to kind of summarize, I think, we're talking about how to activate these longevity switches, and one of the key longevity switches that regulates so many of the others is this pathway called sirtuins, and the key molecule that activates that is NAD plus. And to get NAD plus, you have to increase the raw materials for it. And as you age, they go down, and you can do it by taking it as a supplement. And NMN is the one that I recommend. And it's really derived from niacin, from vitamin B3. It activates the sirtuins and does all these wonderful things like DNA repair, helps you produce more energy in your cells, helps with exercise performance, lengthens your telomeres, helps with neurogenesis, making new brain cells, neuroplasticity, lowers inflammation, improves mitochondrial function, helps metabolism, your circadian rhythms, exercise performance. So, I wouldn't break your treadmill off this, but I think that it's really worth considering, and everybody should check it out. So thanks for joining us today on this Scrim Live, Baran, and everybody for joining today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Mark. What a joy to be here and listening to you and be on the same podcast.
All right. Thanks so much.